Straight ahead on 12 News, no holding back. The outgoing Crystal mayor reveals her feelings about the past election. Then, has the economy made a turn? We look back at 2012 and why there's promise for 2013. But first, a major change in how Brooklyn Park will prosecute crime. 12 News starts right now. Brooklyn Park has worked with the same prosecutor for nearly 30 years, but the city has decided to cut ties.
Roger Fellows has his office in Brooklyn Park and prosecutes misdemeanor crimes, including domestic violence cases for the city. But a 5-person panel that includes the city's police chief and deputy chief recommended a change.
Roger Fellows has done a great job, but the question for us is, how do we move forward?
And the big question is, why the change? Chief Michael Davis says Brooklyn Park has a disproportionate number of domestic violence cases, and city staff said there needed to be a different approach. When asked what was the tipping point for the change, Chief Davis says there wasn't one thing. But the city's current prosecutor, Roger Fellows, made it clear he wanted to continue his duties, even calling it his dream job. He says the city never came to him with any complaints.
And I really want to be gracious about this. The people who made the selection committee, the chief and the other people on that are great people, and they have the best interests of this city at heart. No question about it. I just think that I do too.
It hurts my stomach because it hits very close to home for me. The people that are most accountable are the ones saying, we think this is going to be best for the city. And that's what we're here for.
The city ended up making a change on a divided 4-3 vote. Mayor Lundy and council members Heng and Maida voting no. And here's what we know about the new firm. It's Minneapolis-based Kolich and Associates. That firm has served St. Louis Park for 25 years. The head of the firm, Michael Kolich, has practiced criminal law for nearly 30 years, spending his first 7 years as a Hennepin County prosecutor. Kolich and Associates will take over on April 1st.
A Brooklyn Park apartment complex received a visit from the SWAT team Thursday morning. A spokesman from the Brooklyn Park Police Department says a third party called 911 about a domestic violence situation at the Villa del Coronado apartments along Zane Avenue. Nearly a dozen police cars as well as emergency medical personnel surrounded the building, but after clearing the apartment, officers say they found nothing.
There was no holding back for outgoing Crystal Mayor Renee Bowman. After 8 years in office, Bowman lost her re-election bid in November. Bowman wanted to reflect on the past year, including the West Metro Fire Department, which she says cast a dirty sense around the election. She says the election was not based on truth, but, quote, a campaign based on perceptions and personalities.
Lies were told, and I was demonized. Even the husband of one of our council candidates got in on the mud tossing and spreading of lies. And he never met me. He never talked to me.
Bowman says her reputation was dragged through the mud for asking tough questions of the West Metro Fire Board. And she raised concerns about the new mayor being a firefighter while soon to be voting on pay and pension issues for firefighters. 12 News did reach out to the new mayor, Jim Adams, but he was not available for immediate comment.
In Golden Valley, the City Council has named its replacement for outgoing council member Mike Freiberg, who was elected to the state legislature. The council appointed Planning Commissioner Stephen Schmidgall. Alexandra Renslow talked with him about the future of the Botno light rail line and 3 significant new apartment projects.
Golden Valley is at a crossroads when it comes to the future of light rail through the city. Where do you stand on that issue?
I'm in favor of the proposed Botno Transitway. And I think it has a real opportunity to develop Worth Park and that corner of Golden Valley. My vision for Worth Park would be some light retail, like restaurants or coffee shops, some artfully integrated parking, so that the amenities of Worth Park could be available to urban dwellers from the urban core and people from the suburbs to the northwest.
You keep the tranquility of the park, but you just add a little bit more around the light rail. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I have in mind is very light retail, like the example I always use is the Sea Salt restaurant that's at Minnehaha Park in Minneapolis, right in a city park. and yet a very pleasant experience.
Very quickly, you mentioned earlier the 3 apartment complexes coming to Golden Valley. It's a built-up city, a well-established city. Is this a new era for Golden Valley?
Well, I think it is. These apartments are providing together around 600 units of market rate apartments. Golden Valley is uniquely positioned as a top quality first ring suburb. This will provide housing for people that work in downtown Minneapolis, people that work along the Interstate 394 corridor, and people that work in suburbs to the west.
Schmigdal will hold the Golden Valley Council seat through next December. Well, as the year comes to a close, there is good news on the job front in Minnesota.
A report released today from the Minnesota State Department of Employment and Economic Development showed that the state gained nearly 11,000 jobs during the month of November. That puts the Minnesota unemployment rate at 5.7%. That's well below the national rate of 7.7%. And as Delane Cleveland reports now, it is welcome news for local governments.
2012 has been a good year for jobs in Brooklyn Park.
We've really seen growth across the board. We've seen manufacturers like Metro Mold and Design come into the community this past year.
This past summer, the manufacturing company Metro Mold and Design expanded to Brooklyn Park thanks in large part to their work with medical devices.
It's absolutely exciting. I mean, the opening of this facility is something I've been dreaming about since 1997.
Diversified Plastics was another Brooklyn Park manufacturing company getting ready to expand this past summer.
It's great to be in that field right now. You look at the industries that are really growing, you will always need medical devices.
All in all, Brooklyn Park has made a big recovery with jobs since the economic downturn.
Since then, we have not just recovered those jobs, but grown to a number above that. So we are over and above what our high point was prior to the economic downturn.
The city's business development manager, Amy Baldwin, attributes that growth to some of the city's recent road and transportation improvements along Highway 610 and 169.
They really have just made it a lot easier for folks to get in and out, and that's, I think, been a big piece, in our general location within the metro is really just a positive itself.
Another positive is the spin-off effect the job growth has had on other local businesses.
As people are working here, even if they may not live in our community, they're probably spending money here and supporting other businesses.
All good news heading into 2013. In Brooklyn Park, Delane Cleveland, 12 News.
Brooklyn Park city officials say they expect the job growth to continue with the expansion of the Target campus, as well as new construction projects near Highway 610.
A move to merge 2 health care centers is meant to improve care for people with disabilities. The Courage Center in Golden Valley is merging with Sister Kenny Rehabilitation Institute in Minneapolis. Talk of a partnership has been in the works for more than a year. Courage Center officials say it should help smooth out a fragmented system of rehab services that can be difficult for clients, especially those who see a long list of specialists.
None of those providers necessarily talk to one another. None of those providers have an understanding of what medications they might prescribe for me. So what we're going to be able to do as a result of this merger, we'll all have a common communications system one day.
Courage Center officials say it's a good match because Sister Kenny is an inpatient hospital facility and Courage Center does everything except that. Well, coming up, we meet a standout student who has a hand in a little bit of everything at her Brooklyn Park school.
Then later in sports, he's not out on the lake just yet, but Terry Tuma is back this winter for his first ice fishing trip of the season.
But first, it's your AccuWeather forecast.
She is part of the backbone of her school.
This week's standout student has established herself as a strong leader and role model at Maranatha Christian Academy.
It's something that kids look forward to, these big events that we do.
You could call Kara Groves the school event planner.
What is unusual about the Mona Lisa?
The senior at Maranatha Christian Academy is known for spearheading activities big and small for her classmates as president of the student council.
It's a lot of work, but it's so fun and I love doing it, and I love the student council that I'm working with, and it's an enjoyable time for us to just come together and really plan things for the school and be a blessing to our school.
Kara has a very determined personality, and she's committed to what she's doing.
The Dean of Students says Kara's dedication and leadership skills make her a natural role model.
One of the things that impresses me about Kara is you know, the high standard she has for herself and the other leaders in the student council.
I am Miss Maple.
I know your face anywhere.
And those high standards extend to the stage.
She had to play an old lady, and she really knocked the role out.
Kara's theater director says she excels in the spotlight.
She forgets who she is and becomes what she's supposed to be.
And behind the scenes, too. After several roles on stage, Kara became student director last year.
Kids look up to her, they respect her, and last year she did a lot of directing for me and did some really amazing creative things. So she's got a real knack for the dramatic arts.
I get happy when I do it. I love being on stage. It just feels comfortable to me.
After attending Maranatha for her entire preschool, elementary, and high school career, Kara has become part of the framework here. Maranatha is a second home, which will be tough to leave come graduation.
It's a happy, sad, you know, because I love everyone here, but I'm excited to see what the future has in store for me.
Kara's leadership also extends outside of her school walls. This spring, she will travel to Mexico for her second mission trip to work with children in an orphanage. Well, coming up, a musical treat thanks to students at Cooper High School.
But first in sports, a young Wayzata boys hockey team is off to a fast start this season. John Jacobson catches up with the team when we come back. John Jacobson now with sports, and Wayzata's got kind of a young hockey team. Maybe the expectations were fairly low, but they're overcoming that and doing better than expected.
Yeah, they didn't know what they had coming into the season exactly with some young players coming into the program, but it has been a fine start so far. As one of the largest and most successful athletic programs in the state, Wayzata teams never really sneak up on anyone. But as Jay Wilcox reports, the Trojans boys hockey team is opening some eyes early this season.
Unlike 2 years ago when Tony Cameronese and Mario Lucia were lighting up the scoreboard, this Wayzata hockey team doesn't have a lot of big names. They do have a very solid defensive-minded team that's off to a 6-1 start and still getting better.
I think defensively, our defensemen and, forwards, we are pretty fundamentally sound in the D zone.
Well, I knew we'd be a team to compete with coming into the season, but you look at the roster, we got a lot of young talent on the team. Some people thought it'd be a slow start, but I've been real happy with the way we've played.
The Trojans have had an unusual schedule with a lot of games early, then a 2-week break between a win over Duluth East December 8th and this Saturday's game against Stillwater.
I think it's helped us out a little bit. We had some obviously dings a little bit, and some injuries, small injuries that just from playing games that you're going to get, groins and whatnot. And so I think it's been good for us to give our guys a little bit of rest and actually go back to work and work on some things that we need to work on.
Wayzata's climbed to number 4 in the state rankings, and their only loss is to top-rated Edina. After Saturday's game, the Trojans get set to play in the Sports Authority Holiday Classic hosted by Benilde.
I think we're really looking forward to it. It'll be a good test to see how good we really are again, see how we can compete against the top teams in the state.
Every game is a great game, physical, big, strong teams with a lot of skill, and kind of like how our conference is every single day, you know what I mean? So it's good for our kids to get over there and play a back-to-back-to-back schedule like they did growing up in youth hockey. You don't see that in high school very often. So what it does, I think, is it kind of proves teams' depth a little bit, I think, because you got to have guys that can play, night in and night out. You can't just have 1 or 2 guys that can play every single night. You got to have 9 forwards and 6D.
It's a young Wayzata team that's winning the close games so far, and they hope to keep it up. Jay Wilcox, 12 Sports.
4 of Wayzata's 6 games are by 1 goal, and they have allowed 1 goal or fewer in all but 2 games this year. Minnesota lakes, at least around here, aren't quite safe to fish on yet, but it shouldn't be too long. Today and for the next 11 Thursdays on 12 News, pro angler Terry Tuma joins us for a weekly tip. It's his 21st winter with us. Here's Terry with his first of the season ice fishing tip.
Welcome to another winter of ice fishing tips right here on Channel 12. This year, we're going to talk about some maybe sort of basics that a lot of people have asked at recent seminars. In fact, just the other day, and what we'll talk about, let's start out with something sort of a different, if you will, something we don't understand and we for sure don't relate to. That's scent, taste, and smell. First of all, a fish has to smell its food source to become sort of an arousal, if you will. It's time to feed. It's sort of a stimulant, if you want to call it that. And then secondly, they're going to move around with their eyes, they're reposition themselves to see where this food is available at. And then it's going to swim up to it, it's going to grab it. And then at this time, it'll taste it And if it doesn't feel right, besides the taste, it has to be a positive taste. If it doesn't feel right, it will reject that food source. In fact, that rejection can take place in a quarter to a half a second. A bass can do that with a crankbait in the open water period, obviously, in a quarter second. So that's what we're dealing with. A big factor. We get too hung up on the equipment and we're forgetting about the basics of fish. Be sure to tune in. We're going to talk about more basic ice fishing next week.
All right, thanks very much, Terry. Well, with a win over defending state Class 4A champion and #1 rated Osseo Tuesday, the Park Center boys basketball team is the top-ranked team in the state for the first time in over 20 years. The Pirates are ranked first by the Minnesota Basketball News. Apple Valley, another team Park Center's beat this season, is ranked second. Roseville is rated third. Tartan is #4. Then it's Hopkins ranked fifth, with Osseo dropping down to #6. Rounding out the top 10 are Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, Lakeville North, and Prior Lake. In Class 1A, Maranatha Christian Academy is ranked first, with Heritage Christian Academy third. In the girls 4A top 10, two-time defending state champion Hopkins is still #1. Eastview is ranked second, followed by Bloomington Kennedy, Minnetonka, St. Paul Central, Roseville, St. Michael, Albertville, Edina. Then it's Wayzata ranked 9th, and Lakeville North at #10. Providence Academy is rated #1 in the Class 2A girls poll, Maranatha #1 in Class 1A, and Benil St. Margaret's #9 in Class 3A. And that's Look at Sports.
All right, thank you, John. Still ahead, a performance at Cooper High School that's worth sticking around for.
We'll be right back in just a moment.
Here's a home sure to catch your attention. This is in the 6400 block of Glacier Lane in Maple Grove. It's one of the only places you'll find Oscar the Grouch taking a peek at all the lights. These homeowners even took the time to set up a mini Christmas village on their front lawn, and they have Santa's workshop too. Pretty impressive display.
Looks better in the snow.
Yeah,
Good to
it
see
does.
you.
Well, that's all the news for now. Thanks so much for joining us.
But first, here is the Cooper High School Chamber Singers performing Deck the Hall. Enjoy, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Stroll the ancient Christmas carol. La 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 la